How's everybody doing today so far?
Great.
So far, so good.
Great.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad to hear it. And I want to thank you all for allowing me to be your guest instructor today. It's really exciting for me to be able to impart my knowledge of Docusign and command compliance to all of you. I understand that it's a fairly recent thing for you all. So I will do my best to give you all the best practices in using KW Docusign and command there. Oh, it looks like we got a few still waiting in the waiting room there. Let's just get them in. All right. So we got one more. Perfect. All right. All right. So if you have a camera, please turn it on. I'd love to see your faces. Oops, there's something missing there. Okay. All right. So as you can see, my name is Jesse Rojas. I am a Rainmaker agent here in Tucson, Arizona. I serve as the Market Center Tech Trainer, and I am also a Labs Advisor. One other thing in there is I am also a certified Docusign trainer with KW, as you can see there. And I decided to include a picture of my family here just to show you that they are my big why. That's my wife, Stephanie, who is co-owner of our husband-wife real estate team, and our son, Ezra. Okay. And yeah, so we're here to serve any of your Southern Arizona needs if that needs to happen. We're happy to do that. So let's take a look at what we're going to cover today. You already know some of the basics, I would assume, but we're going to cover them anyway. We're going to cover from contact creation, opportunity creation, and all the way to connecting into Docusign so you can get your forms and contracts ready to go. All right. We're also going to be talking about best practices around sending your documents out for signature via Docusign and how to upload your compliance documents. Now, I'm going to be using what we have built out here in Southern Arizona as the example, but I'm sure you have something very similar to what I have here. So you can just translate that then. All right. Does anybody have any questions before we get started? Nope. All right. Looks like we still have some joining in. So we'll go ahead and just get started anyway. Great. Okay. Can everybody see my screen? I got a thumbs up. Yes. Okay, perfect. All right. So this should all look very familiar to you all, right? This is the command dashboard. And to begin, we're going to go ahead and jump into the contacts applet. Okay. Go ahead and do that. Now, let's see, by show of hands here, who has themselves as a contact in their own database? Okay, see a couple hands. Anybody else that doesn't have their camera on? Okay, I got a couple of digital hands there. Perfect. Awesome. So we're going to use ourselves as an example. Okay, if you're not comfortable with that, that's fine. You can create a fictitious client in your database. Okay. One I tend to use a lot is Mr. Bugs Bunny here. All right. So you can tell that Mr. Bugs Bunny is pretty well full of information here in my database. Okay, so contact creation. What are the basic elements that you need in contact creation? This is the interactive portion of the training, so don't be afraid to answer.
Name.
Name, Yep, that's one piece. What else could we use?
Email address.
Email address, perfect. Anything else? How about a phone number? Perfect. Phone number, yeah, at least those three pieces you should have. And the reason for those three will become very apparent here as we continue on in creating our opportunity. All right, so Mr. Bugs Bunny here, let's see, I have him set up with Lola. It should be Lola Bunny, but Lola is his significant other, right? And they're looking to purchase a property in Tucson here. And we're going to create this opportunity with the both of them. Now, how many of you are on teams? I got 1, 2, couple. So, okay, the rest are independent agents then, individual agents. Perfect. Okay, so for those on teams, I will touch on a little bit of it. But this is geared more toward individual agents, but we're going to go ahead and include some of the team aspect as well. So we got that best practice covered as well. Okay, so from here, we're going to go ahead and we already have Bugs Bunny entered in here. We have a phone number, we have an email address, and I put my own. This is my junk email address, so don't use it. But this is going to be the example that I use to get things signed in Docusign. Okay, that's a very important piece right there. Can everybody see this little echo? I'm going to use that to highlight my clicks throughout this training, okay? All right, so from here, we can go ahead and jump right into opportunities and click on Create Opportunity. All right, so those of you on Teams, this should look familiar. You're going to have your Market Center access here. If you're a part of more than one Market Center, you can select the appropriate one that this file is supposed to be filed with. If you're on a team, you should have your team selected so that your transaction coordinator or any other manager can have access. The opportunity type that we're going to choose in this case is a buyer. I am going to be the owner. We got the client situated here. Let's go ahead and select our co-buyer here. So I'm going to type in Lola and select her. All right. So here we're going to enter in our first best practice here. Okay. Best practice, an opportunity name so that, well, let me ask this question. Is dual agency allowed where you're practicing? No?
Yes.
It is? Great. So this is something that's going to come in handy for those of you that are practicing dual agency, right? Which are representing both the buyer and seller. You're going to want to differentiate the opportunity name. Okay. So in doing so, what I recommend is using the address that you're looking to work with. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and use this address from here in Tucson. And I'm going to also include the surname of my client. Okay, this is going to allow me and our market center, when reviewing your file, to be able to reference this opportunity straight away, rather than having to sift through and see just Bugs Bunny buyer, it's going to make it a lot cleaner. Does that make any sense? Yeah. Great. Okay. Now we fill in all the required portions. All right. We're going to give Bugs. He's going to be $1 million buyer here. What is kind of an average commission rate that you have in your market?
2.5%.
2.5%. Okay. We'll go ahead and enter that in here. And I'm going to manipulate these we're not really going to be playing with the sales pipeline very much, but I'm going to go ahead and say that we're out negotiating a contract. Okay. So for those of you on teams, you're going to want to be mindful of this assignees portion of the opportunity. Okay. So by default, being that you're creating this opportunity, your name should auto-populate. But if you are required to include any other person on your team, like a rainmaker, which will by default have access, or any other agent that you're working with on this transaction, should be included, including your admin. Okay. So it should look something like that. Does that make, does anybody have any questions about this portion? No? All right. Let's go ahead and continue on. At this point, I'm going to hit create. And there we go. We have our opportunity created. Let's go ahead and click into it. All right. So there are a couple sections here that we can take care of. Okay. And we have our universal symbol of edit, which is the little pencil icon. All right. So let's go ahead and take advantage of that. I'm going to click on this and I'm going to make sure that everything here is correct. Now, if you didn't change your opportunity name before, like most of you with buyers, gotcha. Okay. Thanks, Tim, for clarifying dual agency. Okay, that's good to know. Let's see here. Okay, so for those of you that didn't change your opportunity name, which is kind of going to be typical when working with buyers, because if you initially work with your buyer, you're not going to have a property right out the gate, right? And especially in this market, your property address is going to change. Am I right? Is the market as hot as it is there as it is here? I'm sure things are moving real fast. You got a lot of competing offers, escalation clauses everywhere, what have you. Great. So this will be the address portion of this will change depending on which address you're working on. Okay. A question I get here in Arizona is we have the ability here to submit multiple offers simultaneously. Is that something you also have available to you? I see a yes. Okay, perfect. So great. If you're doing that in the meantime, I would wait until you have a property under contract to change the opportunity name. This is where you can do that. Okay, after you've initially created it. Custom tags, if you want to be hyper focused on a specific area or you want to see where your business is happening the most, a specific neighborhood, a builder, or anything else like that, you can create a custom tag around that. As you can see here, I have some custom tags that I've created: residential, KB Home being a builder, Bella Tierra is a neighborhood that KB Home runs or develops, and I also have commercial as a custom tag. So it's up to you how you want to view your business and how it's progressing, where your business is coming from. Okay, we can verify our names and our opportunity phases and stages. Everything else looks good. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save. Well, I really don't need to. There's nothing to save. Okay, so the next portion that I'm going to encourage is right over here to the right under the property section. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that pencil button. Select the appropriate country. And I'm going to enter in that address. And there it is straight away. I'm going to go ahead and select it and save. Now there's something about this box is you can clear it and change the address, but you can't clear it and save it blank. All right. So you can replace it. You just cannot erase it. Okay. So be mindful of that. If you need to change it, go ahead and do so. You do have that ability. Any questions on that? Okay, so
Yes, yes.
okay, what's the question, Angie? Right, you cannot erase the information that you include in the property box. And you can't delete it because it really is needing to be filled out. This is a piece of information that's going to follow all the way through into the commissions portion of the opportunity. Okay, so it's going to have to be the relevant property address. Does that make sense? Perfect. Yeah, and you can change it. Just change the information as you go along. It really has no negative effect other than this is the address that's going to stick all the way through. Okay. All right. So great. Now the next portion, we're just going to take a look up here. We have our contacts. We have the individuals that are included in this opportunity. If I click on one, I notice that the name, primary phone number, and primary email address are available, right? So those were the three pieces of information that we added at the very beginning. Okay. So this information, along with what we have here in the property section and the budget here, is going to be part of the pieces of information that actually sync up with Docusign rooms. Has anybody seen that already before?
Yes.
Perfect. Great. So you have a good understanding of what we're going to see later on. For those of you that haven't, buckle up. We're going to see it pretty soon. Now let's take a look at Lola. Notice here how I don't have any information for Lola. So here's my next question. How many of you have worked with clients, a pair of clients that share one email address?
Yes.
Okay. Does it happen quite often? Is
Often enough. Yes.
Often enough. Okay. And does that give you kind of a headache to have to deal with?
In Loop, it did. I haven't had this experience in Docusign yet. So.
Okay. Right. So that was a limitation of Loop, and that it required a different email for each individual. We'll get into that as soon as we move over into the Docusign section.
I think it requires different ones in Command.
It does in Command. It does require that in Command. However, being that the email address isn't necessarily a required field, you can leave it like I have it here with it blank. Does that make sense?
Yes, I think phone number also is one of those issues, but okay.
Right, phone number as well. Phone number, yeah, phone, I can see where that is. So the reason why phone number and email address cannot be the same is that the system by default and by request of agents and leadership is to have something as a filter to go ahead and eliminate the possibility of duplicates. Okay, those are the pieces that it works off. It doesn't work off of the name as, you know, we might expect, but really even a phone number in this day and age where everybody essentially has a cell phone number to themselves will have their own phone number and their own email address. But we have ways to work around it. Okay. Any questions before we move on? Okay, let's go ahead and move on. So the next portion that I'm going to look at here is the document section. Let's go ahead and click into that. So from here, what I'm going to need to do straight away is select a checklist. Now your compliance team should have already developed a list or they're working on a list. Either case, this is how it's going to work. We're going to come down here to the pick checklist type. hit the drop down, and depending on what your market center has created, your compliance team has created, you'll select the appropriate one. So in this case, I'm going to have the residential resale property type selected, and that's going to populate my checklist. Okay. Is everybody familiar with this so far?
Yes.
Great. Okay. So we have 3 different files here, and this is default to everybody. We have a consultation file, and your compliance team will decide what should be included in the consultation side. What we've done here in Southern Arizona is we've built out the disclosures portion. So we have a set of disclosures that we give all our clients at consultation, and we also include the buyer broker agreement if we have that exclusivity already established with them. So we'll add that here. And the reason why it's sectioned off is because these, for us here in Arizona, are typically not disclosures that change per property. Does that make sense? These are just business disclosures, just giving your clients the information. Do you have forms similar to this in your market?
Yes.
Perfect. So this is one way that they can build it out. All right. Now, does everybody see this DS right here? Okay. So what that DS stands for, or what it tells you, is that this form specifically, these forms specifically, will be auto-populated in your Docusign room. Now, this is set up by your market center and your compliance team. So if this is something that you'd like to see built out, let them know, or let me get in contact with them for you so we can work on getting that established, okay? Now, let's go ahead and take a look at the under contract section. There are also some documents that auto populate in the room once it's created. And you'll see that there are others that are required and such. Does everybody have a list similar to this?
Yes.
Beautiful. Perfect. Thank you, Tim, for being so active in the chat. Great. So how many times have you all submitted files and go through inspections, or for one reason or another, your client decides that they're not going to move forward with that property? It does happen. Absolutely. So the question that I get most often is, what do we do in that case? Do I create a new opportunity? Is there something else that I can do? And the answer is absolutely, there's something else you can do. So if everybody can take a look right here, everybody notice the under contract section here? If I click this arrow, it gives me the ability to create a new version. Okay. And the reason why this is here is because we've taken into account that, yes, deals do fall through. And the opportunity isn't based on the property. It's based on your opportunity to do business with your clients. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Great. So as you move toward another property, you're going to want to definitely set up another checklist. I'll do that here. And it'll say version 2. So you can change that name and understand that you only have the one opportunity to change the name if that's what you'd like to do. And it'll give you a completely different set. So under contract, we'll have different documents here. And under contract version 2, the like, okay? Have you all experienced this already in your command compliance files?
Yes.
Okay, great.
So I'm sorry, Jesse, how many versions can you actually create?
As many as you need.
Okay.
Yep. We understand that in this market, you're submitting paperwork that many, many times for clients. So there really isn't a limit. But if you do hit one, if you do, then it would be a creation of another opportunity to substitute. But I haven't seen that yet. How many different contracts have you written on average for a client that you had to submit for compliance?
3 or 4.
3 or 4? Yeah, you should be able to handle that here by creating the different versions. Wrote 9 offers. Yep, I've had one here in Tucson where I wrote more than 12 at least. It's a crazy time we're living in. Okay, let's see. All right. Let's see what else I should cover. Okay, so there are some other practices that your compliance team will talk about. Now, let me ask you, okay, let me see this question here by Angie. So when you create a new version, what additional information do you change? Great question. Frankly, in the opportunity itself, you don't have to change much information other than the property address. As you write your offers and submit compliance, you're going to want to update this with the current property that you're working with with the clients. Does that make sense? Perfect. The other side of things is, of course, you're going to need to submit new sets of your documents. Okay. And we'll talk about best practice in Docusign rooms and how to handle that here in a bit, as soon as we get started on the start transaction side. Okay. Great. So does anybody need anything clarified of this section before we move on? Okay. Actually, there is one more thing I want to show you. Has anybody taken advantage of this status drop down menu here? No? Okay, great. So let me show you what this is. So say you've submitted your file and it's been reviewed. You have a way to filter what you still need to work on or what's been approved. Sorry, it's so light, but once we upload documents, it'll be a little bit easier to see. But as your compliance team reviews your files, you can look at what's been returned to you so you can fix it. You can check to see what has been replaced in the specific file. If there's anything missing, approved, returned, right? So all those different ways you can filter out your documents. So in this case, since I have none uploaded, the only option I have is not uploaded, which is everything. Okay, I can show you what that looks like a little bit here as we continue to move forward. But that's what that would be used for. It's a filtering system. I think it's pretty cool. Do any of you see yourself using that moving forward?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yes, perfect. Yeah, it'll simplify things for you, clean it up a little bit. All right, so let's go ahead and get this transaction started. And by doing so, y'all know that we got to click on start a transaction. And being that I have Docusign and .loop connected to my command still, I'm just going to go ahead and select Docusign. All right. Now, this is what's typical for Teams, which is what this transaction type is. And Teams usually include the Rainmaker as well as a team agent. Yes, your screen will be different. This is specifically for Teams. So Tim, if you're not on a team, you won't get this sync transaction section. It already knows what to sync over for you. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and hit confirm and sync. All right, so we all know that it redirects us to Docusign rooms. So we're going to go ahead and log in. And here we are. So notice how I have documents already preloaded into this room. You remember the DS that were next to the document names like this? This is how it makes it a little bit simpler for you. All right. So let me show you some other things that come through as well. Here's your opportunity name right there. So that synced over. The property address also synced over. Let's go ahead and click in the details section here and see what else came through. All right, so here's our address once again, which is great. And here's our contract amount, right? So we entered, that's what we had entered in for budget, right? Now this section is very similar to what you've experienced in .loop, where you have to basically add all the information that's relevant, right? Yeah. So we're going to go ahead and click on edit, and we're going to verify that all the information is correct. All right, I don't have seller information on this one, so that's fine if it's blank. I'm working with my buyer. If I wanted to include here what my actual property type is, I could do that. So I'm going to go with residential detached for a single family residence. All right, because that's what they're interested in. We're going to work with that. So anything I enter in here also has some effect, right? So today will be the offer date that we're going to use here. Earnest money amount, we're going to put in $20,000. The contract date, we'll make it today as well. We'll keep that blank. I'll show you what we're going to do with that later. If your contracts have these dates specified, definitely include them. Okay. Financing type, we're going to go conventional for him. Since, look at, they've included Bitcoin. That's new. Other, you would choose other if it were a carryback or a jumbo loan of sorts, right? Which, well, jumbo loans kind of function like a conventional in that case. It's just a lot bigger. And you can fill out all the information that you see necessary. One piece that I'm going to pay special attention to is the right-hand column over here, where we can enter in seller information, seller 2, who the listing agent is. In this case, I'm going to say that the listing agent is my wife. Oops. Okay, I'll leave that there. There's bugs. So there's the information that came through on the contact. Sorry about that. It clicked up real fast. There's Bugs Bunny. There's the cell phone number. And there's the email address that's being used. There's Lola. Notice where I don't have information in here because we didn't include it for Lola. Let's see, I got a question here. Is this the first change you get to add listing agents info? This is the first place, first chance, first opportunity. What's great is that if you forget to do it here, you can still do it in the documents and it will actually backfill this section. So it's pretty cool how this system is built out with that. Let me show you that. I'm going to go ahead and remove my wife here, and we'll demonstrate that a little bit later. Now, some really important information that you're going to want to verify is your information, right? So make sure your name is spelled right. Make sure your company is reflected correctly. Keller Williams Realty is in Austin, Texas. And you're going to use your DBA, the DBA that your market center has chosen to use. In my case, it is Southern Arizona, right? So yours would be KW Legacy, right? Okay. And we're going to make sure that this information is correct all the way through. All right. So we verified the information. Everything looks correct. I'm satisfied at this point. So I will go ahead and save this.
My information as the agent, either on the buyer side or the listed side, is going to be the same in most cases. Is there any way to store that so that I don't have to enter that every time?
Okay, so could you just ask
All
that?
the information that you just entered, my name, my brokerage, all that information is basically the same on all of my contracts. So can I store that in the system so I don't have to enter that every time?
You're asking about a form overlay template. Yes, that exists.
Okay,
And I'll show you how to do that.
thank you.
Okay, so we've updated the information. We're satisfied. We know that our documents are already here. So let me show you how to create that form overlay template. All right. So from here, we're going to go ahead and jump into My Docs. Once we click that, notice that we have this option here, Form Templates. Ah, Tim, okay, so you don't have that connected. Everybody, if it's all right with you, I can go ahead and show Tim what he needs to start with. Or actually, Tim, here's what I'm going to do. I am going to go ahead and send you a document. I'm going to add a document here in the chat that will give you step-by-step instructions on how to do that, okay? Perfect. So let me get that document ready, and I'll add that there. Just give me one moment. Yes, I'm going to include the file here in the chat. So it'll be up pretty soon here. Just give me 1 second. All right. I went ahead and added that to, oops, let me do this again. I sent that privately. I wanted to send that to everybody. Okay. So does everybody see that file? If you're on your phone, you might not see the file included in chat. So I highly recommend jumping on a computer if you can. If someone has Jeanette's information, would you mind just emailing that to her so that she can have it? I think we'd both really appreciate that. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at this form templates. All right, we're going to go ahead and click on that. And you'll notice that I have things populated already. Being that this is brand new to you, you're not going to have anything here. And that's okay. So one of the things that I like to do is actually create a template for the buyer broker agreement as my demonstration. So I'm going to go ahead and delete it. As you saw that I could delete it by clicking the drop down option and selecting delete. And here are a couple things about templates. You can have more than one template per form. Okay, so that's something that you can do. If you have, say, for example, a form that has you specify residential or land or commercial or anything like that, and you want it to always reflect that without having to make any clicks or anything like that, definitely use a template. And I'll show you what I mean here right now. So to get started, I'm going to go ahead and click on Create Form Template right here. Now, I'm going to select a Docusign form library. Your market center can create form groups for you to simplify this. So if your association gave you a whole bunch of documents to use and you have to sift through the 100 documents or so just to find the one, your market center, your compliance coordinators can create these groups within Docusign Room to just make that super simple. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how simple that is. So I'm going to click on residential resale and purchase. That's what I've created for us. And I'm going to add the buyer broker exclusive employment agreement right here. Notice how there's a color difference here. This one is not a required form, yet the ones in red are required forms. Okay, so your compliance team can build this out for you to reflect as such as well. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and hit use. And we'll let this document load here. There we go. And one of the first things that I want to point out is that you have the ability to name your template. If you want to rename it into something that you're going to remember, especially if you're going to have different versions, different templates for this specific form, I'd highly recommend you change the name. Okay. In this case, since I want this to be the only template for this form, I'm going to leave this alone and hit the check mark to save it. All right. Now I get to enter in all the information that I don't like typing over and over again, right? So I'm going to enter in our brokerage name here. And I'll add my name. Okay. And being that these are radio buttons here, what I would recommend, if you want to have multiple templates, you can do this. In this case, this is kind of the example I was explaining before. I can only select one of these since they made these radio buttons. Okay. So either I select it now or I don't select it if I don't want to create another template for this. So you're going to want to go through your form, and anything that never changes is something that you're going to want to include as part of your template. So in this case for me, I'm always going to be giving our clients the real estate agency disclosure and election form specific to Arizona, stipulating what the responsibilities and what the fiduciary responsibility is of the agent for the client. Anything else that requires to be there, like the compensation here, you are free to, well, at least here in Arizona, we're free to charge our clients as we should, as we price ourselves, as we find that we're making the money that we need to sustain our business and our homes. So in this case, you're going to want to specify what specific percentage you're going to be charging your clients. Right. So in this case, I'm going to specify that it's 3% of the sales price. Check with your broker on the best practice on this. Every state is different. Here we have a window after the agreement expires that we can still work with them if the buyer chooses to still work with us. So I'm going to put a 90-day period. And if there's any additional terms that you need to include, be sure to include those as well. And you'll notice that I only typed Keller Williams Southern Arizona the one time at the beginning, and it populated the same exact specified data slot on the next page. So that made it super easy. All I have to do now is hit save and close. Now, another document that you're going to want to, I recommend you doing this on, is probably your residential purchase contract. That's probably going to have the most static information that never changes, such as your information, your licensing information, brokerage information, broker information itself, and other such things. Am I correct in that understanding? Okay. So that's a quick way, a quick demonstration of how to create a template. Does anybody have any questions with that? we got one mind blown here. Anybody else? It's pretty cool. Let me show you how to apply it now. So I'm going to go back to my rooms here. And what we have here is the latest created. So whatever was created last is going to appear first. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right in there. Click on my document section, and I'm going to find that buyer broker agreement. Looks like it hasn't auto-populated, and that's okay. Let me go ahead and add that document. So I'm going to come over here to the add section, select Docusign Forms. And being that I know that it's in the form group residential resale purchase, I'm going to go ahead and navigate there and select that document. I'm also going to bring this one in too. Now, you notice what happened when I selected the buyer broker agreement? I'll do it again. It created a drop down. And the drop down is because I have created a template for this form. So as I add the document, I can have the template applied as soon as it populates. Pretty cool, right? But what if I forget to do that and I just add it anyway? How do I get to use that buyer broker agreement template that I created? Well, it works like this. I'm going to go ahead and find that document here, and I'm going to right click it and select the option apply form template. I click that, select the appropriate template, hit apply. So now when I open up the buyer broker agreement here, it populates with the information that I had entered in on my template, right? Everything that I had entered there. And you'll also notice that the information from the details section has already begun to populate within the form itself, as we see Bugs Bunny and Lola Rabbit here, right? That's pretty cool. And now we have the signature spots ready and the primary email address. This is coming from buyer one. You guys see that? So that information is coming from buyer one. That's going to be considered the primary on this deal. All right, let's go ahead and save and close this one. All right, Tim. Well, thank you for joining us so far. Please feel free to reach out to leadership. And if you need additional help with connecting Docusign to Command, feel free to reach out.
So okay. when you created that form and you filled it in the firm section, the Keller Williams Southern, whatever it was called, it populated everywhere else on the form where it was looking for firm.
Right.
But it would not populate other documents in the same room that had firm, just for that particular document, correct?
No, actually, what it will do is populate everywhere else, because I have included that in my agent section, in the detail section, right? So over here in the detail section.
Exactly. So that was my original question. When you were in the detail section, you put that there, Keller Williams Southern Arizona. Mm-hmm. My question is there a way that I don't have to fill in the detail section for every room every time I create a room in Docusign, when this information is the same every time I create a room?
That's a great question. That's actually being explored right now. It's not yet in place, but it is something that they're looking into.
Because if it's there and it's in every room, it'll populate for every document that's looking for a firm. And I won't have to create the template in order to do that.
Right. Well, and even in any case, even the template itself is another way to not have to type it in, right? So that's an additional option. So yeah, I agree with you. I agree that it should take everything from where we're at and just throw it into the documents.
I just didn't know if that was the option somewhere. If there was some other place I could put that information and didn't have to populate it for everywhere. Thank you.
You're very welcome. But definitely lean on the template, because it'll do it itself. If you have the template and you apply it, anything that's always the same will be there on your form. You won't have to type it in. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look here at some other forms that I know is going to require the firm name. So I'm going to take a look here at the real estate agency disclosure and election form. that we have here in Arizona. And this one for us, and you may encounter this as well. See how it says that it's optional for us? It's actually a required piece. So if you come across anything like this, be sure to reach out to your MCTT and your MCTT so that they're aware of it and they can submit a ticket to have that corrected. Because otherwise it's just going to be a problem or something that's irritating along the way. So you don't want that to happen. So definitely reach out to your MCTT when you encounter that. In my case, since I know that it's not populated, I'm going to go ahead and apply a template that I've already created so I don't have to type everything. Right? So I just applied the template and there we go. That's the information that I wanted it to have. And I'm satisfied. So in this case, your template's going to be one of your best friends when dealing with any of these documents. Does anybody see themselves building out all their templates after this call? And just know it's only the one time that you have to do it. The only exception to that is if a form gets updated. If a form gets updated, they don't move your template over to the new version of the form. You just have to redo that. And that's happens what, once a year at most, twice at most. So really not that much time at all. All right, does anybody have any questions about templates and how to apply them? No? All right. So let's go ahead and get some of these out for signature, right? So in this case, the example I'm going to choose, I'm going to choose all of these. I'm going to choose all of the forms that are considered part of the purchase package for us. So I'm going to click this one. I'm going to select this one as well. Right. So notice how I'm individually selecting the documents I'm wanting to work with at this moment. All right. So for the sake of time and demonstration, I'm going to go ahead and say that I filled out everything and I'm satisfied with it. Okay. You're going to take more time to make sure everything's filled out appropriately. Okay. So now I've selected the documents that I need to get sent out for signature. I'm under the impression that everything's perfect and I'm ready to move on. Since I've selected the documents already, I'm going to go ahead and click on the create envelope button right here to get that started. All right. So as we wait for this envelope to get rendered here, does anybody have any questions about the next portion, which is the envelope section? Has anybody encountered anything kind of funky with this section? Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and jump into it then. Now, what I would encourage you to do, especially if you are writing multiple offers for your clients, is change the envelope name so you can keep track of what you have sent out. Okay. So in this case, I'm going to say 1849 North Culp. I'm going to use the address. It's the simplest thing for me to differentiate everything. And I'm going to call this consultation docs. And to me, I know what I'm talking about, right? So I suggest you do the same and understand, okay, this is what I want to use. This is the nomenclature. This is how it's going to make sense for me in organizing my paperwork. So I've added that. Now, some of you may or may not want to order these specifically as your client goes through. Who here it really needs to have things in a certain order? Anybody? Just me? Okay, that's fine. I like to have things in a specific order, right? So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to go ahead and drag and drop it in the order that I like to have it. All right, so far I got those two there. I'm going to bring this one over. Wire fraud works perfectly there. And I'll move the residential purchase contract last. And perfect. I have the order that I like, and I'm satisfied with that. If I forgot something, I can click on Room Docs, and it'll take me here to make the selection if I have forgotten anything, which is a nice way of doing things. All right. Next, we're going to come to the add recipients portion to the envelope. So we're going to go ahead and click on this, and everybody tell me which option I need to be choosing here.
Pre-tag roles.
Absolutely. Pre-tagged roles is your best friend. So everybody else that's been silent so far, you've all been dragging and dropping all of your signature boxes and date boxes and initial boxes, right? I don't know. I heard a yes in there somewhere, but that's what we're going to go with. So yes, pre-tagged roles are your best friend. Let's go ahead and click that. So now buyer 1 is going to be selected, and I'm going to designate Bugs Bunny being buyer 1. Buyer 2 is going to be selected. I'm going to designate Lola Rabbit as buyer 2. What else needs to be in here? Right here, me, I need to be in here. So in this case, the way they named it is manager. So I'm going to go ahead and click that role. If you have a role for yourself, like buyer's agent, anything like that, that you see, be sure to use it because it'll auto-populate the section that you're required to initial sign and such. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and hit add selected. A question that I get, if I don't have anything that I need to sign, do I need to send it to myself? Has anybody wondered that? Yeah, okay. Well, you can add yourself to it, and you could just simply add it as it receives a copy. But also know that you're going to receive a notification via email that something was executed, and it's going to be in your Docusign room anyway. So it's kind of a redundant copy. But that's up to you on how you best receive your information. Now, here's where things get fun. So you remember that limitation in dot loop where you couldn't use the same email address for the same for two different people? Right? Here's what we're going to do. You notice these numbers here on the side of each contact? This is what's going to dictate a signing order. So being that I want to sign last, I'm going to make myself 3. And buyer 2, since it's using the same email address, it's going to be using the same email address as buyer 1, will be number 2. I'm going to go ahead and copy this email address and pop it right in here for Lola Rabbit. And the reason why I want to do that is when this gets sent out to Bugs Bunny, he's going to be the only one to have something to sign to start out. As soon as Bugs Bunny's done, another set of emails will be sent out specifically this time for Lola Rabbit. Lola Rabbit will take care of her portion. Once she finishes signing, then the number 3 slot will get their information and get their portion to sign. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Has anybody used this already?
Yes.
Perfect. Awesome. So this is great. Now, if you have a transaction coordinator and you know somebody else needs to receive a copy of this, that's fine too. You can just come in here, pop in the email address. You know, I'm going to put mine in here. Right. And all I'm going to do is designate that she receives a copy, and she's going to be, for me, in the number 4 spot. Right. So that's basically it. That's how you do that. Right. I'm going to remove this because she's going to wonder what I'm doing. Any questions on the adding recipients portion before I move on? Crickets, crickets. Okay, so we're moving on. Now the last portion here, message to all recipients. So this section right here is what's going to be really important to pay attention to, okay? Notice how it says recipients to all, message to all recipients. It really means that. Everybody's gonna receive the same exact message that's attached to this envelope. So a best practice is to not include any other entity. No, I would not include title company in this. I would not include the cooperating agent. And I would not include anybody else outside of the pertinent individuals. Can anybody tell me why I'm suggesting this? No? Okay, I'll go ahead and explain my reasoning. So in this portion, knowing that this is going to go to everybody, I want to be mindful of my fiduciary responsibilities to my clients. And one of those responsibilities is confidentiality. So my communication to my clients is a point of confidentiality that the cooperating agent does not need or should have at all throughout any of the duration of the transaction, unless your client specifically gives you that instruction. Of course, every state's different and you should check with your broker, but that is how I've come to understand the best practice for this section. Does that make sense for you all?
Yes.
Perfect. Now, another question that I get on this is there ever going to be like a template section for me to add this message? Because I don't want to keep typing out the same thing over and over and over again. That is another thing that has been brought up, and that is something that they are researching, right? And by they, I mean KWR. They're researching the possibility of integrating a message template here. And the reason why you want to have something like that is for consistency's sake. And, you know, if ever any of your files get audited and they request to see the communication that went out about signing this set of forms, whatever the set, they will see a consistency between each and every one of your clients and see that that's one of your business practices. Okay, so we all know that consistency is the name of the game, whether it's in our follow-up and lead generation. Consistency is what it's all about. Okay, so I like to include instructions here, basic ones. Hello, and it could be really short and simple. Please, and I'm going to be very specific on what I want to do. Please review the disclosures and employment agreement prior to signing. Should you have any questions, please contact me as soon as possible. Okay. And then I would also include basic contact information for yourself, right? There you go. Standardize it. Make it something like this. Okay. Use this as an example. Build upon it. I encourage it. All right. And you can change your email subject and it will be sent out as you. Any questions on that? No? All right. Now, if you're not ready to move on to the next section, you do have the save and close option here up top. The actions button here is if you're like, actually, I don't want to do this right now, or my client said that never mind, they don't want to submit the offer. You can go ahead and delete this envelope and recreate another one as soon as you're required. Right? So that is an option. Everybody ready to move on to the next portion?
Yes.
Thanks, Deborah. I appreciate you answering my questions. I'm going to go ahead and hit next now. So we see that we have our form auto-populated here. You know, it's a great thing. I love that that's an option. And this is the reason why we use the pre-tagged roles in Docusign. It already populates what we need. Now, here are some things that I've noticed in practice. The date signed box actually fills with information that is twice its size. So best practice wouldn't be to center it based on the size of the box that's shown, but center it knowing that it's going to be about double the size. Okay. So let me show you something that you can do with the box. So if I click on the box itself, I do have a formatting option here. And you'll notice that I do have a way to change the font if I so choose. Just know that if you love changing the font, you're going to have to do it manually every single time. Don't recommend it. There is no way to save it as a template type thing. At least not spread across all the forms. So it's a little bit clunky in that regard. But you can change the boldness, the italic, the underline, and change the size. In some cases, size 7 is a great size, a great compromise if your date field tends to be a little bit smaller on your forms. That's a great way to go, size 7, and then center, understanding that this is only half of the size. And size for our forms anyway here in Arizona, 65 is perfect. That works perfectly on every form that we have. So whatever it might be on yours, just keep that in mind. Ends up being pretty cool. Now you notice here on the bottom of every form, it's going to be required to have your name and the name of your brokerage. So if it says anything other than Keller Williams Legacy, or it says Keller Williams Realty, just know that that is something that you'll have to take care of in the preferences and settings, okay? And also make sure that it's reflected as such in the detail section. All right, so we can do this. Wow, this is a really long form. Sorry about that. There we go. So we're just making sure everything looks good. See how this one is sent. It's not exactly centered. I know this one's going to be crazy. If anybody has OCD like I do, I feel you. I know exactly what you like. I know exactly what you're experiencing when things aren't exactly the way you want them. I like consistency. I like all that stuff. Does anybody else feel that way? Show of hands. Digital hands are great too. You know, I have to align it. I have to make sure it looks really good. Okay, cleanliness is good. Now I'm going to come in here. On our purchase contract, what we have is a form portion. Let's see, that has optional initial buttons. Notice how down below there are solid colors and the other ones are just outlined with the colors of yellow and blue. The ones that are outlined are just optional fields, and 9 times out of 10, your clients are just going to breeze right over it and not fill it in. So be mindful of these fields on your forms and just eliminate what you don't need, right? You can either select it and click the delete button down here in the bottom corner, or you can right click and hit delete. You have options. And the way you make it required is you select the field and hit the required button there and there. Now the field is required, it's solid colored, and now my client has no choice but to interact with that portion. Makes it pretty simple. If for whatever reason that I forgot to check a box, like in this case, I didn't check the sewer box, I'm going to come over here and select the checkbox button, place it right over that box that I need. And the cool thing is if I hit the space bar, it'll automatically check that, or a good double click in it will do the same thing, whatever you prefer. And I will definitely want to make this read only, since that really doesn't need the interaction. All right, we just make sure everything else looks good, include all the information that's needed, and eliminate what's not. So I'm going to get rid of this and this because I don't need that. But I notice, hey, where's my signature box? No problem. I'm just going to go ahead and drag this out if I need to, but I don't. This is the purchase offer, so we're good. There is actually one form that I need to switch this on, and that's the exclusivity agreement. All right, so I'm going to eliminate this, change my date box to the appropriate size, and drop my signature box, which I will also resize. Right, so if you have to make any edits, it's actually pretty quick to do and pretty easy to navigate. Does anybody have any questions on this signature section? All right, we'll go ahead and say no. So at this point, I'm satisfied with everything. I'm going to go ahead and send this out for signature. Now, remember, I sent this out to myself to practice with. I recommend you do the same. I hope that you've been doing that as practice continuously. You don't want to practice on your clients. It looks kind of bad. Yeah, the optics of that are just kind of hard. So definitely practice with your own information so that you can see what everything is like. So if your clients ever have an issue, you know exactly how to help them. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and hit send. All right. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and make sure everything is signed up really nice and tight so we can get into the next portion. So would somebody mind sharing their experience so far with working in Docusign rooms and Command? Has it been great? Has it been okay? Have I answered any of your questions so far that you might have been having?
I've used it maybe 3 times to submit offers and commission requests and so forth. And I've found it to be okay. Initially, I had an issue with finding the document that was fully signed once my client signed it.
Okay.
I didn't realize that it was attached to an email. So that was a bit of a struggle too for me. Is it also, can you also find the fully signed PDF in Docusign?
Absolutely, you can. And I'm going to show you what that looks like here in just a moment. Yeah, that's a great observation. And I understand, help me understand a little bit better. How long ago was it that you all started working with Command for compliance and Docusign rooms?
Oh, it's been, I guess, close to a year or more now, but I had continued in .loop, so I was a late starter in Command.
I see, okay. Yeah, that, so have you found it fairly simple to use other than the locating of files? It works pretty similarly to .loop, I would say.
Yes. I think with a little more practice, I can certainly say it's at least comparable to .loop.
Okay. Yeah, I think that would be true. Everything has a little bit of a learning curve. My experience with it, I felt that it was fairly intuitive. It didn't really differ a whole lot. I recognize that there are a lot of similarities between this system and Dotloop, especially when it came to adding details, adding the appropriate people. What I did like in this case was if it existed in command, it would sync over and I wouldn't have to re-enter contact information that way. So that was a plus for me.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And another plus for me would be the ability to use templates. For me personally, a template in Dotloop was a little clunky. And I have been more familiar with using templates in the zip form side of transaction management software. And both were great, but I really love that they implemented the template portion to Docusign Rooms. I think that helped me tremendously in saving me a ton of time.
Yes, and I will explore that a little more, and I'm sure I'll use it a little more after this session.
Yeah, so definitely worth the explore. So once everything's signed by everybody, it takes about a full minute or so before you notice this envelope change colors. So we're looking for this to become green. Okay, you'll notice me refresh my screen a few times here. Nicole, did you have a question? I noticed your hands up from before. Is it a new question or is it just been up there?
No, I didn't realize it was up. Thank you.
Oh, okay, sure. All right, so you notice how now it's green, right? That makes it pretty simple. So you can click into it if you'd like, and you have a couple ways of doing this. You can click more and hit copy, or you can view your documents one by one here. I don't recommend doing it that way, but you can verify that everything's signed that way. Where you're going to find your signed copies, as it was previously mentioned, you will receive an email with the fully executed documents, but you can also find them in the documents section of the room, and they will also have the corresponding color of green indicating that they're executed, like so. Okay. Now, one thing that this does differently than Dotloop is that it allows you to reuse the forms. In Dotloop, we were required to re-add whatever we needed, right? Everybody experienced that before?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
So in Dotloop itself, have you experienced forms and having to re-add a form that you need to use? Whereas here in Docusign, you can reuse the form over and over again.
Oh, yes. Got it.
Yeah. Great. Cool. So let's go ahead and look at organizing your room, or as a really bad joke, keep your room clean, right?
Okay. Can I just ask? So sure. when I asked about the full PDF, so it is not saved as one full document, the documents that which previously signed by the client, it's not saved in Docusign as one full document.
Oh, that's what it does differently compared to, say, Dotloop. Dotloop, if you select all the forms and download it, it's in one file.
Yes.
This one doesn't do that.
Okay.
It keeps things separate.
Okay.
And I think that's kind of advantageous, especially for what we're doing and how our system's designed to go forward. Yeah, so let me show you what I mean, okay? So if I click these and I select the green ones, since I know that those are the PDF versions of the forms and that are signed, if I hit download, it's going to download separately in a zip folder. And that's how I'll access each file individually. There is a way to combine files if you so wish. Notice this button right here, and it has combine right here. You can put things together. So that is still an option there.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. Yep. If that's what you'd like to do, you can still do that. But in this demonstration, I'm not going to do that. We're going to go ahead now and create a room folder similarly to what we used to do in .loop. So I'm going to come here to actions, select add folder, and I'm going to separate things out. I know that specifically, I know that the folders in my compliance file are separated out by consultation, consultation, under contract, and closed. So I'm going to remember that and create these that way. So since this one is only for the consultation docs, the docs that don't change, that I don't require a signature every single time I'm working on a property, I'm going to make sure that they're all in one place. So that's that's the ABA and any other disclosure that I have had signed. All right, and there's one more. I think that's it. So I've selected everything that's green that I know needs to be moved over. So since I have them selected, you'll notice here that I have a move button. All right, so this move button will bring up the destination section. So it actually, the second one down is folder in the current room. So I'm going to go ahead and select consultation docs and hit move. So what this is going to do is it's going to separate out the forms that I can use over and over again and keep my room organized with what's signed in its appropriate section, right? I'm going to do the same thing again. This time I'm going to do it for under contract, but I'm going to name this folder specifically with the address name, because I'm going to use the same room for the same set of clients. So I might as well keep it organized this way. And there's only one doc that I know needs to be there, and that's the residential purchase contract. I'm going to hit move again, move it to the selected folder, and we're good to go. All right. So you'll notice that I have only forms at the bottom, and I can choose to archive them. Since I've already used them, I'm like, I'm done with these. I don't need to use these again. I'm going to archive all of these consultation docs, or I can delete them. It's up to you how you want to do it. If you archive them, the room is still going to recognize that they're being used, and you would just have to unarchive them to use them again. If you delete them, you'd have to add them all together one more time. Does that make sense? Right, so in this case, I'm going to go ahead and archive these guys. All right. And there we go. Here are the remaining docs that I will use again. I will use a purchase contract if I'm working with a buyer over again. And this will remain here for when I am ready to get that final walkthrough done. Okay, so we've got our room organized. We have all our docs signed. We're ready to submit these to compliance to get reviewed. So I'm going to go ahead and move over back to command, right? So it's just the tab over. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and hit refresh. And what command is recognizing is it's going to go ahead and see that I'm going to attach some files from Docusign. It recognizes that Docusign was used in this case. Okay, so in the consultation section, I'm going to move over and I'm going to select the specific folder that I created in Docusign Rooms that's actually pertinent to this consultation file. So there's the consultation docs. And now it will only show me the docs that I consider to be part of consultation. Pretty cool, right? Notice how every file has the suffix of signed. That's the indicator that it has been executed. A big advantage. I'm going to just go ahead and add these docs, and you'll notice as I add one by one, it'll eliminate what it doesn't require. Like if it's already been used, it'll eliminate it from the list. So if I move this up a little bit here, and let's see, I need to scroll this down. There's one doc that seems to be evading me. And you can fix it and change it and select the appropriate one if you so need to. So wire fraud, market conditions, there we go. There it is. Okay. So now all my docs are there, pulling from that one place. Now I'll go to under contract and select the address that I'm working with right now and populate the only doc that's in there. And that's it. Once I'm done with this, I will go ahead and click on submit to MC to have my file reviewed. Pretty easy. Any questions on that section? So we talked about a few best practices. Let's go ahead and review some of them. Best practice number one, make sure to have your primary contact or your primary client to have at least the phone number and email address populated. Your secondary, if it has different information, you can add that. If not, I'd encourage you to leave that blank. And let's see, what else do we have here? In the details section, our best practice is to make sure that our opportunity name shows the property that we're working on at this moment. That'll make it easy for your compliance officers to look at. We have the property section here that we should definitely be using and updating if we're writing multiple offers on multiple different properties. That's a big plus there. In the document section, definitely check out your checklist here. If you have one individually for the transaction type, make sure you're selecting the correct one. You can now just separate things out by reviewed, if that's what you so choose. So, or uploaded rather, so you can see how that filter works now. Pretty cool. You also know how to add a version. If one deal falls out of contract, you are in great space there. And let's see what else. In Docusign itself, we have a best practice of making sure that the details section is filled out appropriately with the best information available to us. We've learned how to create a form template so that you don't have to always type the information that's the same all the time. We've also learned how to add documents, apply that template. We learned that it's a possibility for form groups to be created, so you don't have to sift through many different forms to get what you need. We've learned how to add a template when adding a form to our room manually. We know how to create the envelope and the best practices surrounding that, and changing the envelope name by the set of documents that we're sending out so we can keep track of ourselves, make sure everything looks good. We also learned that we should be using pre-tag roles. It's our best friend because any form that's been built into Docusign rooms is going to be, in fact, auto-populated with those signature, initial, and date sign boxes, which is a huge time saver for all of us. We also learned that we can change the size of the signature box, the font size, if we so need to. We can add anything that we need if we missed it before in filling out the form. We've learned how to, we learned the best practice surrounding messages out and who not to include when we're sending documents out, how to set a signing order so that clients that are using single email address can do that and work effectively in that. And we've also learned how to send documents to others in our team that require it, like our transaction coordinator or anything else similar to that position. And we've learned how to organize the room so that when it comes to uploading them in compliance, everything is easily accessible and easily entered in. and upload it. That's a lot that we covered. Does anybody have any questions before we sign off? All right. Well, I appreciate all of your time. Thank you so much for allowing me to share this with you. I really, really, really do appreciate it. If you have any questions, I'm going to go ahead and throw my email address in the chat there so you can have it. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me there. And of course, you can also contact your leadership. Again, thank you so much. I appreciate all of your time. And I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. Maybe I'll see you soon. Take care now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.